being in the right place at the right time. You just
Yeah.
need to stay in your lane and
Yeah.
keep doing your thing. And
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thing and you're doing it because you love it and you're dedicated, the opportunity will present
That's
itself,
right.
right?
That's right. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Before we get started on the interviews, I just wanted to cover real quick some things about the new show. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I want to let you know the reason I put the show together is to cover several topics that I think doesn't get talked about enough in the creative industries: how to stay inspired, motivated, how to continue to grow, how to produce quality work you're proud of, how to enjoy the journey of being an artist. These are some of the things I'm interested in understanding, as it is some of the key components to staying in the game over a long period of time and having a healthy relationship with being an artist. Even though this show involves a lot of music, I wanted this show to appeal to artists in general. Even myself as a musician, I come from a family of visual artists as well as musicians and avid music collectors and listeners. As a kid, I used to dance and write horrible raps. So I have been in the arts for my entire life. And on top of these goals, I also want to address some of the stigmas that go along with being an artist, such as the idea that real artists don't have jobs. For me, to be an artist is not to embrace the concept of being broke and suffering. It should be more fulfilling, and that's something that I want to achieve with you if that's something you feel you might need. That being said, I'd like to begin our journey of growth and discovery with an interview, starting with a good friend of mine, Quetzal Guerrero. I'm definitely not saying that right, but a singer and violin player. Q has been in the game for a substantial amount of time and created a lot of fantastic music that I love. He is constantly collaborating with great producers and performing in awesome groups or doing great solo concerts as well. This song you're hearing in the background is entitled Everlasting, that features Quetzal on vocals and violin. And you can hear more of his stuff on any of the digital streaming sites, Spotify, iTunes, whatever it is, Google Play that you listen to, as well as being able to download it on MP3s. I'm really delighted to have him be a part of the first show, as he is someone who, for me, who represents and embodies artistry entirely in his everyday life, and also comes from a really artistic family. So without further delay, let's get right into it and let's get this interview started. Quetzal, how you doing, bro?
Good, man. I'm good. How you
Good,
doing?
good, good, good. So yeah, thanks for being on the show. I kind of put this together to fill another section of being an artist, which has to do more with the creative side of things, inspiration, and all that. I'm super, super stoked to have you a part of this because in conversations we've had before, personally, we've talked about a little bit about the artistic background you have with your family and stuff. And this I think is kind of a perfect way to open up everything, because I think that with that background comes kind of a true understanding of the creative process and all this stuff. And I don't want to get into that. And I want to start with maybe you and telling me again a bit about your the artistic family background and how you got into it and the influences from what your parents do as well.
Cool. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Quetzal Guerrero. I also go by QVLN. And I met Mr. Myles Bigelow through the incredible circle of Yoruba Records artists that
That's right.
we are both a part of, through our musical mentor, Mr. Osunade. And, we started talking shop, we started to connect, and, we also shared our stories about our musical journey. So I'm originally from Mesa, Arizona. My father is a fifth generation born and raised here in this state of Arizona. We have ancestry in Arizona and northern Mexico and in southern California. So my father is kind of like comes from this history of pre-colonial history, right? Like my parents have been, my father's and family has been here, has roots in Arizona since before it was part of the United States, when it used to be part of
Wow.
Mexico, right? And then my father has tribal roots from Southern California, Mission Indians called Juaneños or Ahachamen. So I was raised with that awareness and consciousness of my cultural ancestral context, right?
Right.
My father is a visual artist as well. Um, he's a sculptor, a painter, mask maker. He's a thespian. He does theater. He's also a singer and musician. So he was studying art in Mexico, and he met my mother, who is Brazilian. My mother is from Recife, Brazil,
Mm,
and she's a classically trained pianist from the age of 5. She plays guitar, she plays accordion. They're part of that whole hippie arts movement back in the 60s and 70s.
right.
And they met in Mexico, and they traveled all of Latin America together and soaked up
Wow.
all the music, started learning a lot of styles of music, from Andean music to Brazilian music to Caribbean music to Mexican music. So through their travels, they developed all of this kind of awareness and enrichment from the cultural arts of this region. And when they
Cool.
moved back to Phoenix to start their family and start their careers, they also started a band. They had one of the very first world music Latin bands here in Phoenix called Zoom Zoom Zoom. So they were doing gigs, they were doing parties. They were like one of the only bands doing anything outside of like country, western, rock and roll, and blues. They were doing all the other stuff. They were
Right.
playing samba, cumbias, reggaes, rancheras, fajos, all this rhythm in the Caribbean and South America that a lot of the immigrants out here were looking to find. So they
Cool.
found their niche out here, and then voila, here I come.
Right.
When my mother was pregnant with me, she was going to the shows, performing concerts, playing all the time. So I think it really prepared me as a child, right? We know
Yeah.
that babies
Performance
adapt
baby.
for the outside world while they're in utero. They're
Yeah.
receiving all this information through the mother's diet, through the sounds, through the emotions, through everything that they're feeling.
Totally.
The body starts to evolve and prepare already before you're born, right?
Right.
So when I was born, my mom was taking me to more gigs. She would bring me in a little basket and put me underneath her vibraphone. She would play vibes, and all her family members were like scared to death. They thought that I was gonna be deaf because they were taking me to these shows and concerts. I was just a little baby,
Right.
but
Right.
it was quite the opposite. What it
Mm,
gave me was a huge wealth of knowledge and
yeah.
of life experience to pull from. I
Right.
grew up surrounded by all the best musicians in the city, in Phoenix. They were coming in and out of the house. I would watch them play gigs. So, I already at a young age developed that kind of I attuned my ears to really like recognize. I could tell, when somebody was really good. I'd just be there like, oh man, this new piano player, wow, look at him play, this new drummer. And then I would just be watching and observing. And musicians and artists, being part of this whole family community that I was in, they were always super open and generous to share and teach me anything I wanted to learn you know
Right.
so that music was just part of my whole environment growing up from a
And,
very young
and you're
age.
you're you're doing this all through high school as well. Like,
Yes.
okay. And
Yeah.
you were in
So
Arizona the whole time.
yeah, well, I grew up in Arizona, but obviously because I have family in Brazil, we travel back to Brazil a lot.
Oh, okay.
And
Cool.
anybody who's been to Brazil or knows about Brazilian music, it's
Yeah.
super rich. The
Yeah. Very
cultural arts in
diverse.
Brazil is like surpasses the United States by many, many
100%.
magnitudes.
Yeah.
Everything, everybody there dances, everybody sings, there's live
Right.
music everywhere. So I also
Yeah.
got a chance to study in Brazil at a
Cool.
conservatory there when I was very young. And I got to identify more with that side of my culture. My mom raised me speaking
Right.
Portuguese as well,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and she taught me how to play Brazilian music. She taught me how to play samba and bossa nova on guitar,
Nice.
and
Okay.
I started studying classical violin around the age of 4, And the
So
violin,
it's a violin, not viola. Yeah.
yeah, it's a violin.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Violin.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I started with violin at the age of 4, and that became like my most dedicated instrument. Right, that was the
Okay.
instrument that I started with. It was the instrument that I learned all my foundational kind of understanding of music. And then when I got a little bit older, like 9, 10, 11, 12, I started picking up the congas. I started picking up
Okay.
guitar. I
Wow.
started getting really into music that was cultural and I identified with, like stuff like Santana, or
Right.
like Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley. And then when I got into junior
Cool.
high school, there was like the golden era of hip hop, right? It was the 90s. So everybody was b-boying and writing graffiti and
Yeah.
DJing.
Yeah.
So I got into breakdancing, I got into graffiti,
Yeah.
and I started a band with my friends in junior high school. And we
Okay.
started doing all kinds of, we started playing Rick James songs. We started playing like the Gap tunes, you know
Oh,
what I'm saying? We
nice. Yeah.
played,
Yeah.
and then we would get invited to play at car shows and
Oh,
birthday
really cool.
parties, quinceañeras. We played a lot of quinceañeras. If y'all don't know, in Mexican culture, quinceañera is like a girl's sweet 16, but it's her sweet 15,
Right.
and it's like big deal. Like they
That's
they
right.
dish out mad cash to like
Totally.
bring a girl into womanhood, and they
That's
throw
right.
parties. So you used to play at all kinds of quinceañeras,
Uh-huh.
junior high
Uh-huh.
school dances, car shows, and
Crazy.
so it was great because by the time I was in junior high, I was
Yeah.
already making
Polishing.
money.
Yeah. Yeah. Polishing
Yeah,
the
but
performance already and
yes,
yeah. Yeah.
polishing the
Yeah.
performance, getting
Yeah.
the stage experience,
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
experience of performing with other musicians,
Totally. Yeah.
and making money.
And making
I was
money.
like,
Yeah.
oh, this is tight. I'm not trying to work at, Mickey
So
D's
you
like
got a
every day.
taste of it already. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting good money, and I'm doing my thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is great.
Totally.
I'm gonna do this forever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
by the time I was out of high school, I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time trying to go to college and put myself in debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I already have decades at this point of
Yeah.
musical education and
Yeah.
of resources. I already had steady gigs, so I'm like, I'm just gonna keep doing this. This is awesome. And that's when I started
Mm-hmm.
getting into composing, recording, and trying to create my own artistry.
Take it up to the next level. Yeah.
Take it up to the
Yeah.
next level.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so so thankfully, it was because of a man named Santos, who was another artist from Yoruba Records.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if that's him. Okay.
Yeah, Santos. So he was actually A&R for Yoruba Records.
Ah.
He
Okay.
met Osunlade. So if some of you guys, let me back up a little bit. So my man Santos is a New York Italian who
Okay.
grew up in New York until about high school age, and then he moved to Tempe, Arizona, which is the suburb right
Ah.
next to Mesa.
Okay.
And he was also a dancer, he was a DJ, and he started getting into music production. So he went to winter music conference, in the early 2000s and met Osunlade.
Uh-huh.
Back in the day, if you were a up and coming music producer in house music, like winter music conference was the place to go
That's
because
right.
you
That's
could
right.
go and you could dish out your demos and see if
Trade records and
trade records,
yeah.
go
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
your favorite legendary DJs perform, like
That's right.
Osunlade, like Louis Vega, like so many others, and maybe get a chance at getting your demo picked up by a label.
Totally.
So this is exactly
Yeah.
what Santos did back in the early 2000s, and he met Osunlade. Osunlade took him under his wing like he does to so many of us, and
Yeah.
had him be an A&R for his label.
Okay.
So I met Santos at one of the house music nights here in Phoenix. There was a very small house music scene, like a weekly thing called
Okay.
Batucada. It was a
Okay.
dope party, and all of my homies who were dancers were going. We were actually sneaking in. We were under 21. We couldn't get in.
All right. Right.
We
Right.
would like climb out the side
Yeah.
up to like the there was like a little deck on the second
Yeah.
floor, and we would shimmy up the top and jump in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the DJs loved us because we were dancers. We were there to dance. We
Yeah.
weren't there to try to like socialize or party or act cool.
Yeah.
So they was putting us on, and they was
Yep.
like, after that they would invite us to all the parties.
For
So
sure.
I remember sneaking into one of these parties and watching Santos play, and I loved his selection.
Okay.
Why? Because he had that ancestral soul,
Right.
Afro Caribbean diasporic
Deep. Yeah,
vibes, and I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
dude, this dude is dope. I didn't.
Okay.
He was bringing that New York sound right to Phoenix. I hadn't heard
Right.
it,
Right.
so I geeked out and I just fanboyed him and came up to him and I was like, oh man, that's amazing. Your shit is dope. Is it dope? Blah blah blah. So we start talking, and he's telling me. I told him like, yeah, I'm a musician. I play music, and he was like, oh, cool. You play instruments? I'm like, yeah, da da da. And then some of the other DJs knew what I did. They co-signed. They're like, oh yeah, man, Q, man, you should check him out. He's talented. He's doing this. So Santos was like, come to the crib. I'm trying to create music for my next album. You know, let's
That's how you got in there.
let's
Okay.
vibe. Let's do
Yeah.
some.
Yeah.
So I show up. I'm in Santos's garage studio. We're recording stuff. I'm putting down ideas. I'm putting down grooves. And while this is happening, Oshunade calls. He's calling Santos, just
Hmm.
checking up on where the album is going.
Okay.
And Oshunade hears over the phone. He's hearing some of the stuff that we're doing, and he's like, "What's that? What is that?" And
Yeah.
Santos is like, oh, this is Q, he's this young kid, I was like, not even 21 yet,
That's exactly, sorry to cut you off. That's exactly what they mean by the right moment, the right time, and like that
yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah,
right? You're there, you're recording, he
yeah,
calls, he's listening over the phone. That's
yeah, and
that moment.
the thing about those moments is that you just have to be ready, right? You can't try
100%.
to can't set those moments up
No, you
about
can't.
being in the right place at the right time. You just
Yeah.
need to stay in your lane and
Yeah.
keep doing your thing. And if you're doing your
Yeah.
thing and you're doing it because you love it and you're dedicated, the opportunity will present
That's
itself,
right.
right?
That's right.
That's exactly what happened. I was just
Yeah.
there I was like, trying to make a name for myself, wanting to record stuff, wanting to, collaborate with people who were like down with creating music.
Right.
And that's when
And that's what
Oshunade was
happened.
on the phone and heard what I was saying. He's like, what is that? Who's that? And I was like,
Right.
oh, this is dude Q, I've been working with him, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this is dope. I love it. I love it. He's like, tell him to come to Music Winter Conference this year.
Oh shit. Okay.
And then Santos was like, hey, bro. Santos is like super New Yorker from Santa Ana. He's like, yo,
Yeah.
bro. Yo, Oshunade really like your sound, bro. Dog, you got to come with me, man. We got to go to Music Winter Conference.
Nice.
And I was like, I had already heard about Winter Music Conference from my buddies
Okay.
who were raving about it. They was like, "This is the dopest party ever," blah blah.
Right.
So I was like,
So
"Cool,
you already knew.
let's do it." So I showed up at Winter Music Conference, got to meet Osunade. He was like on the very developing, growing stages of Yoruba Records at the time.
Right.
So he's like, look, I'm putting together a live band. I want to bring live music back into the house music world.
Okay.
And I'm going to create the Yoruba Soul Orchestra, and I want you to
Cool.
be a part of it.
Nice.
And I was like, this is dope. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And he's like, all right, you got to come to Puerto Rico. He was living in Puerto Rico at the time, in San Juan.
He's lived everywhere, man.
He's all over the place.
Yeah.
So it was great. So I got an opportunity to live with him at his place in Puerto Rico.
Oh, cool.
Play with his band, tour Europe, tour US.
Amazing.
And he signed me for a 1 album deal to Yoruba
Which you did
Records.
that album. Okay.
And that's when I did my album with them a few years back. Yeah, so that's the story.
I'm glad you're saying that. I'm glad you're saying that because one thing I was trying to understand is, sometimes there's kind of like okay, did you get into it because the industry embraced you, or did you embrace the industry first and then you got into it? Because I think some people think like because a majority of the industry is electronic, that musicians feel less inclined maybe to be a part of it or whatever that may be. That's just my own theory. But the point is that, yeah, I'm glad I'm hearing that was like, it was your interest in the music that got you to where you're at. Because even when you make your music, it doesn't necessarily say I've been listening to house music my whole life. It says that I'm a musician. I have a very diverse perspective of music in general. So that kind of answers another question of mine, which was, when you create music, which generally I find seems to be quite diverse and globally influenced. Do you make songs based with a strategy, or do you just make whatever comes out? You know, like you don't
Yeah.
try to like pre-plan what you're doing, right?
I think
Is there ever
I,
strategy into making a song, or just flow?
both, both.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
that data observant that you made about me doing more like global sounds, not specifically house music, is
Yeah.
very true, and that's
Mhm.
actually what sparked Osunlade's curiosity,
Okay.
right? Because he's got people, DJ producers, who are hitting him up all the time, trying to
Right.
get him to hit their house music tracks, and a lot of it is very formulaic,
That's
right?
right. Right.
People try to follow this formula to success of what they think, people are gonna like,
Yeah.
but in in artistry and in art forms and people, consumers and listeners appreciate authenticity more than anything,
There it is.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're trying to follow some formula and push some kind of song or idea that you think is going to be a hit, if it's not authentic to who you are, and it's not going to translate, it's not going to transmit, right?
That's right. That's right.
So what I loved about Osunlade is that he wasn't trying to do house music. He was just trying to do music that he felt like and he enjoyed.
Right.
So when I did my first album for him, it wasn't house music. It was all the other things in between. It was a
That's
lot of
right.
the influences of house music. It was a lot
Right.
of Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Caribbean, soul, percussive,
Mhm.
all of the elements that led to house music, right? Like
Right.
when you think about the roots of house music, who you think about?
It's
Fela Kuti,
tribal. Yeah. Right.
tribal,
Right. 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 Right.
Afrobeat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's actually one of the biggest roots of house music. Disco. Disco
Yeah.
came from rhythms like samba,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it
Interesting. Yeah.
became, organically, it morphed and changed into this very kind of digitally produced kind of drum
Yeah.
machine sound that we now know of as house music, right?
Right. Right.
So Osunlade didn't put any of those constraints on me about like what it needs to be. He's just like,
Okay.
do you create
Okay.
all the sounds of music? He's like, I want it to be diverse. He wanted to show his subscribers how diverse sounds and music can be, so that they
Gotcha.
get a bigger and better respect and understanding for music and artistry in general,
Totally.
right? So it actually wasn't until the last couple of years that I started to really step towards creating, like purposefully creating house music.
Okay.
And that was because of all of the house music DJ producers that I've met over the years.
Totally.
Cats like Jose Marquez,
Mhm.
who I've known for years. Cats like Alex M, who I've met in the last few years. Cats like yourself, Myles, Myles
Mhm.
Bigelow.
Mhm.
And cats like CoFlow.
Yeah.
These are all people that I'm collaborating with now,
Yeah.
with the intention of saying, all right, let's make some house music. Let's make
Mhm.
this, let's make that. So
Mhm.
they'll either come to me with a backbeat or a track, right, that they're working on, and
Right.
then I'll riff off of that. I'll get inspired off of what they're creating, and then
Right.
I'll create something on top that I feel like complements it and also showcases myself as an artist, right?
Okay.
And I've done vice versa, right? I've sent
Right.
tracks or stems to producer homies for them to create house music with,
Gotcha.
right? So
Gotcha.
for me, house music is a collaborative effort because I'm not a DJ, right? And
Yeah.
I'm
It's a melting pot, and maybe it's like it's just a foundation that allows you to be as diverse and
yes.
experimental as you want, really.
And the cool thing about where
yeah.
house music is now is that it's a lot more mainstream than it was back in the early 2000s and the 90s. 90s, it was
Okay.
super underground. Early 2000s, it was underground, right?
Right.
You had like the top pop house electronic stuff, but that didn't sound anything like what Osunlade was doing.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now there's this whole, it is still underground for the most part, but it's a lot more of a gray area. There's so much more of it that's mixed together.
It's that whole genre and Afro house has definitely hit much more mainstream globally,
Yes.
obviously because of artists like like Black Coffee, especially. That was a huge push, and him collaborating with like mainstream artists now and whatnot. Where do you draw your inspiration from I think we have some of those answers there. But let's say when you're making as much material as you are, it's easy to say that you can dry up. You know what I mean? And your inspiration just kind of starts to dwindle, and then you're like wondering how much do you have left in you before you need to start restoring some energy and getting more inspiration again. So, do you feel that you have those kind of issues where you hit walls and you need to, like, I don't know, kind of re-energize, or do you just have this constant flow that helps you, that you just internally have, that keeps you driven and keeps you going?
I think it's a little bit of both. You know, I definitely hit walls creatively when working on a specific project. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So there's been times where it'll take me a long time to just get inspired
Okay.
to record something for a specific song. Like I have to sit and really listen to it and really listen to it and see what comes out. But I've noticed that that flow state, there's a flow state that all artists and creatives, even athletes, reach, and
Yeah.
there's a process behind that. You
Mhm.
know, there's thousands of hours of practice behind that. You know,
Yeah.
there's creating the right comfort and environment behind that,
Right.
right? So I've noticed that my flow state and my creative flow also does depend on that. Like, am I taking the time to practice? And I'm talking about just practicing something simple like timing or rhythm or a melody or something else. Just it's not a creative thing. It's more like a training thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the
Mm-hmm.
difference between, you know, a baseball pitcher just practicing pitches and not in the game, and then when he gets to the game, he's sharp, he's ready to strike people out. You see what I mean? So
Okay. Okay.
it's the same thing
Getting
with
in
a
a
martial
zone.
artist. It's like a martial. You could be a good fighter, but if you get in a ring with somebody who's been training, you're not gonna last, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta be, before you get in the ring. You gotta be in there doing practicing repetition over and over and
Right.
over,
Right.
so that your body, when it's time to connect it to that flow state, can just go boom right into it, right?
Right.
And
Interesting.
you know what I
So
mean?
so
So
there's a constant shift of gears. Like if you're stuck on something, you're like, all right, I'll just work on practicing my
yes,
instrument. And then if
yes,
you're kind of like, all right, I'm done with that, then I'll just work on writing lyrics for this. Or it's your ability to be able to kind of just change things up when you need to keep the flow
yes.
going in different formats and whatever.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a musician and I
Mm,
think a lot of the DJ producers that I've
okay.
worked with,
Right. Right. Right.
because they're more dependent on the software and the computer to create all the beats.
Okay.
So when they hit a wall with something, it's a
Yeah.
lot harder to break out of that cycle of how they're used to creating, which is
Yeah.
dependent on the software.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've seen the benefits of, because I actually play instruments. When I'm in the computer and I'm trying to write something and I'm hitting a wall,
Mm-hmm.
I just got to go back to the drawing board. I just
Totally.
go back to practicing, go back to learning
Yeah.
another song that I
Mm-hmm.
just want to learn for my own
Mm-hmm.
benefit, because every time I learn somebody else's tune,
Yeah.
I'm learning little things that
Little
I can
things.
apply for my own stuff, right?
100%. Yeah,
You
making
know what I
notes
mean?
as you go
So
along. Yeah,
so
I
I
think
can go
that's
back to the practice board and just focus on just developing my skills, and then
mhm.
that helps to get me back into the flow state.
Yes,
Then I can
yes,
go back
yeah,
to work and get back into creative mode.
yeah. So there's some notes there as far as like, even if you are a producer, like, if you get stuck on something, maybe it's time to start learning other aspects of music or
Mhm.
being involved in other stuff, which might give you ideas. That's why I find listening to music does that for me. I myself I never have an issue with being uninspired. But part of what I wanted to start this show was to figure out how I could get other friends and people who are always telling me like I feel stuck right now, especially in the state of where the arts is now, based on the challenges we're going through, globally. I just find a lot of people are uninspired right now, and I try to tell them, well, you got to do this and got to do that, but then I started realizing, like, man, you know what? I'm pretty sure if I start asking other people the same questions, people such as yourself who are so used to doing a million things. And, I never really felt like you were a person that would be stuck musically on something. Like, how do we explain that to people who feel stuck, because
Yeah.
it's weird. Like right now, it's like we have all the time in the world we have more time than before to be creative. And at the same time, it feels like it's more dried up. The inspiration is more dried up than
Yeah.
ever before too. So,
Yes.
it's like, yes, like music is a resonance of society and the way that we do things. And people are, they feed off of energy, which is, definitely a part of music. But it's like, how do we conquer that and get through it? And I think, just kind of like internalizing it again, going back to, like you're saying, like working on different aspects of music, practicing your instruments, learning new things about music can help with that. So that's great information that people, I think, should be able to feed off of, especially if they're not feeling inspired. Future projects, stuff that you're working on. I know that this is great to talk about too, because you're still keeping busy, even
Yeah.
though there's less venues, obviously, like doing stuff right now. But what are you doing project wise to stay busy, and what are some future projects that you have going on that you're excited about?
Yeah. So project wise, the good thing is like I did go through that little lull in the beginning of this whole quarantine where I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? My whole year just got canceled. 2020
Yeah, totally.
done.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
like tours, I had shows, releases,
yeah,
all that dunzo,
yeah.
right? But little by little, I started getting, emails or messages. I'm like, hey, we're gonna move our festival to digital platform. Hey, we want to do something digitally, or we're gonna do this, blah 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 blah. Or we getting funds specifically to produce stuff for virtual stuff. So that's
Okay,
been cool because through my network and community of arts and artists, I've been able to like slowly ease my way back into my own kind of flow to the
okay.
point where now I'm like, I'm getting more into production, my own production, whereas before I'd be doing a lot of collabs with
Yeah,
producers.
yeah.
Now I'm like taking the time, I have the time now to really learn how to produce and create stuff on my own, which I never really took the time to do before because I just
Cool.
that energy and time went somewhere else, right?
Right, right.
So that's new.
That's
That's
great.
fun. It's
Hmm.
opening up a new kind of perspective for me
Yeah,
where I'm producing a lot more stuff on my own.
that's awesome.
So that's in the works.
Great.
Also, some of my buddies who I've been working with for years, who are sound engineers and producers, they have a lot more time to
Right.
create because they're not on the road or doing stuff. So next month, I'm going to be going to LA to start working on a new album with some of my musician friends. That's great because I actually wasn't even interested in doing an album. Had you asked me, a few months ago, hey, are you going to put an album out soon? I'd be like, nah, I'm just going to do singles. Album is too much work. It's too much time.
Right.
It's a
Right.
singles market now. I'd rather just keep moving in different directions, whatever I'm feeling, and put out songs, which is what I've been doing.
Right.
And I really like it.
Hmm.
But now that I have the opportunity from my friends who offered, like, yo, man, why don't we have this time? Why don't we just get together and do an album? I'm like, all right, cool. So
Might as
that's
well.
something that wouldn't have happened otherwise
Yeah.
that I'm excited about. So that
Totally.
the beginnings of this new album is going to start up
Cool.
the end of next month. So I'm starting to like,
Get into
visualize
that
and
mind
think
frame.
about creatively like what styles and ideas and motifs I want to like start with, right?
Okay.
Because
So there's the strategy working. Like, what are you trying to
yeah.
say?
So
Yeah, yeah.
there's some of that too because I want to start with some. I know that for me, I work really well with like a seed. When
Hmm.
I'm working, like if people are like, okay, let's start doing some music, I'm gonna be like, where are we going? Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
point me
yeah.
in a
What are
direction,
we
dog.
saying?
It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an ocean out there.
Right,
And
right.
if somebody can be like, all right, let's go with this concept, or let's
Okay.
write a song about this,
Yeah.
that little starting point is key for me to
Hmm.
go to really go in that direction and take that seed and create a forest. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right. So new album in the works, and you have, like you were telling me before we started this interview, you have some live performances you're doing online that's going down.
Yes. Yes.
and you are doing you're doing other interviews as well and stuff, eh? So you're obviously still keeping the flow going.
Yeah,
And
and that has a lot to do with my community. It
okay,
has
cool.
less to do with me because
Interesting.
if I didn't have them reaching out to me and asking like yourself,
Right.
I would probably just be either practicing or just
Mhm.
producing or recording my own stuff, which
Okay,
is
gotcha.
also good. It's
Yeah.
also constructive, but it's because of the years and years of traveling, touring, meeting, collaborating that I've built this network, much like
Right.
how Shulade has a
Yeah.
global network,
Right.
right, of people that he can go anywhere in the world and there's somebody there that's welcoming him in open arms and wants to work with him and wants to put him on.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know,
That's what's up.
I've seen what he's done and I've taken notes. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
now that everybody's on lockdown, they it's like some people are uber motivated to want to start creating virtual platforms. Other
Hmm.
people are uber motivated to want to start getting back in the studio in the lab.
Right. Right. Right.
So between this whole community of people, I got a steady stream of people hitting me up, either to do collaborations, recordings, tracking, or to do interviews or performances and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's been a
Interesting.
really cool experience. Like
Hmm.
I've been inspired and even more motivated by my community and circle of friends because they're reaching out to people. They're putting in the effort. They're
Yeah.
spreading out that creative love juice
Hmm.
to everybody else, and it
Hmm.
it catches. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's what's up. So there it is, Quetzal. Thank you very much for being on the episode 1 DCM TV. I'm really
Right.
glad it was you, and it's been amazing talking to you as usual. And bro, we're gonna catch up real soon, man.
For sure, man.
Don't hang up. Don't hang up. This is DCM TV, and we'll catch you on episode 2. Thanks for tuning in. Peace. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe and like the videos. If you want to show some more support, you can leave comments in the sections under the video about maybe other topics that I can be talking about with the artists in the interviews. Please follow me on Instagram, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube. I have a playlist on Spotify that has the artists that we'll be interviewing on this channel as well. If you're interested in any of my music, it's all available at www.deepculturemusic.com. That's my music label, and I have a lot of great music that I've made myself and my friends. And please share the video with your social medias and with your friends. Maybe suggest to get them to like it as well so we can continue to have this channel grow and do more great interviews. Okay, thanks a lot, and I look forward to seeing you soon.